Hello watch enthusiasts and welcome to Watch Chronicler. As an owner of a Chronoswiss and now a two-time visitor of the company's headquarters, I'm no stranger to this Lucerne-based brand. Their fluted bezels, onion crowns and screwed lugs provide just as iconic a look as they did when founded in the 1980s by Gerd Rudiger Lang as a resurrection of classic watchmaking. Nevertheless, this is a brand as idiosyncratic as it is historically important, courtesy of the rather wild colours, three-dimensional components, and guilloché surfaces pushed by the current Epstein ownership and designer Mike Panzera. Consequently, as I opened the box of the new Chronoswiss SkelTec, I was taken aback by a new and initially challenging design. Even so, having spent a few days with this unique and very striking watch, I'm confident that it tells us a lot about the future of Chronoswiss. Is this the watch which Chronoswiss has been waiting for? Keep watching to find out. Launched a couple of months ago in this steel and DLC form, in addition to a version with gold accents, and more recently a run of 5 blue spark models, the SkelTec was met with mixed opinions in the media. Still, without pointing any fingers, most journalists produced articles rather devoid of serious examination and consideration, but I think this watch definitely deserves more than this, and a serious look into what it represents. So what is SkelTec, and why is it important to Chronoswiss? Well, Chronoswiss has released two particularly noteworthy pieces this year, the Open Gear Tourbillon and the SkelTec. The Tourbillon, it must be said, is a retrospective product celebrating 20 years since the first Chronoswiss Tourbillon, yet I don't think, to my mind at least, it suggests a future for the brand in any particular direction beyond being an appealing product for the time being. Crucially, its design is near identical to the rest of the brand's recent collection, whilst the movement, a beautiful but standard production piece from La Jouperet, heralds no particular continuation. By contrast, the SkelTec is a very different story. You see, the SkelTec is a large, bold, skeletonized, range-topping model designed to wave the flag for a new Chronoswiss. Nowhere is this more clear than on the case. Where previous Chronoswiss models have featured fine vertical brushing and mirror polishing, this case is deliberately coarse in sandblasted steel, where we would see a large protruding crown, a highly sculptural and very ergonomic guard is added, and the virtually baroque fluted bezel has been transformed into the tread pattern of a car tyre. Of course, certain hallmark details do remain, such as the screwed lugs and the onion crown, yet even here change is clear. The aforementioned screws are sunken into the skeletonized lugs, whilst the crown is DLC black. Before I continue, if you're enjoying this video, remember to like, subscribe and comment, and follow us on Instagram to always know about our videos, podcasts and articles, as well as all the watches you deserve to know about. Speaking of that, head over to watchchronicler.com to access the bulk of our content about watches and absolutely everything related. Ergonomically, this case has a very different demeanour than other Chronoswiss products. Aside from being more aggressive with sharp edges, the construction is profoundly different. Notably, this case is composed of 8 parts due to the limits of CNC machining, whilst the sheer scale of this watch is, at least at first, hard to come to terms with. This watch is a gargantuan 45mm wide by 15.15mm tall by 57mm long. It's a true giant, and for many, with that long lug-to-lug length, I can imagine this being an issue. Nonetheless, the advantage of such an enormous case is the possibility to include a rather remarkable movement, a movement with more symbolic meaning to Chronoswiss as a brand than appears at first consideration. The Manufacture Calibre 304 is, purely going by specifications, a relatively simple affair, you could say. 166 parts, 21 jewels, 48 hours, and a beat rate of 4 Hz. It's also manually wound, although with the interesting use of an automatic mainspring, thus preventing overwinding, a rather clever consideration. Most conspicuously though, it's a movement which is comprehensively skeletonized to show the transfer of energy from the crown to the mainspring, which itself is cut out, and then on through the gear train to the hands. The result really is a delight, especially due to the three-dimensional nature of the experience. But let me draw your attention to 3 important details to notice about this movement. The first is the screwed balance wheel for varied inertia for a more consistent level of timekeeping. The second is the finishing. When looking through the case back, the owner is in for a real treat as the piece serving as a triple spring is grained, cut and beveled to absolute perfection. Such treatment mirrors the ratchet wheel and gives a real sense of care and delicacy whilst creating this movement. The third element to pay attention to is perhaps the most important, the design. You see, when most movements are cut out, they're left somewhat weaker as a consequence. By contrast, this movement appears engineered specifically for this application, thus making the SkelTec a more appropriate everyday choice despite its visible internals. Looking through the domed sapphire crystal, the story is rather similar where the dial is concerned. Of course, calling it a dial is perhaps a step too far, given that Chronoswiss have become known for their dials detailed with hand-turned guilloche patterns. In the spirit of progress, though, no such decoration is present, as the movement takes centre stage. Around it, and supported by 4 pillars, is a ring to indicate the minutes, brand name, and to provide context to the red lacquered hands in the centre. The hands, simple at first glance, are shaped rather carefully for a dynamic appearance and are centrally capped. With a modest application of superluminova, these offer a practical level of low-light legibility. Yet you see there remains a very clear but rather inescapable but to this watch: a lack of cohesion. When a watch is designed, it not only needs to fit its price and the expectations of its buyers, but it also requires a sense of consistency across its components. To explain how this relates to this particular watch, let me begin at its heart. Whilst the balance wheel and the elements on the case back are beautifully detailed, and even the screws have been polished with serious attention, the automotive-inspired spring barrel is rough and appears unfinished. Similarly, whilst the DLC coatings on the case are splendid and the crown guard design shows a real level of innovation, the case finish goes a step further than bead blasting to the point of roughness, whilst oily marks remain from fingerprints even after a thorough wiping. Imperfections also remain on the case flanks, which are too irregular to be deliberate, and yet too noticeable to be acceptable defects at this price. Let's not forget that this watch, whilst admittedly far rarer, is more expensive than an A. Lange & Söhne Saxonia. But with this in mind, how is this watch on the wrist? Well, it's certainly not a watch for smaller wrists due to the 57mm lug-to-lug length. For this reason, I haven't worn it beyond trying it on for the review, but then again, as an introduction to something new from Chronoswiss, I can see why such a big, bold size was chosen. In fact, with my 7-inch wrist, this watch actually sits rather comfortably, courtesy of the heavily curved lug profile and case back. But if this is the case, why haven't I worn the watch much? There's a very simple answer: the strap. The construction of this strap is very similar to the gorgeous, butter-soft crocodile straps produced by this brand, but the material chosen is now calf leather lined nylon with a rubber edge. This will no doubt be very durable and is beautifully constructed, but you can't escape the fact that a 6mm thick strap made from such dense and strong materials is about as compliant as a bulletproof vest. When paired with a deployant clasp which, whilst beautifully made, appears to be fitted the wrong way to follow the lines of the wrist, the result is that I just can't wear it. So where does this leave us? The Chronoswiss SkelTec is a new horizon for Chronoswiss in its modern form, make no mistake. It displays a very innovative design and an exciting opportunity for this company to grow in a new direction whilst continuing to pay respect to a brand with a serious influence in the resurrection of the mechanical watch. Is it a perfect product? No, it does have shortcomings, and the price isn't inconsiderable, yet this is perhaps inevitable with a small brand operating on a very personal level to produce such a watch. I look forward to seeing where this new philosophy takes Chronoswiss in future. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon to see plenty more in future. Thank you very much for watching. This is Armon from WatchChronicle.com, out.